Hello my friends, it's Lisa, and today I'm going to be chatting about all of the series that I am currently in the middle of. I'm basically just going to be shaming myself and admitting how many series I've started, and hopefully that shame will motivate me to actually finish some series. So I thought making this video would be a good way to make sure I know how many series I've started, also hold me accountable to make progress in some of these series, but not only that, talk to you all about them and see which ones you guys think are worth continuing on with or not. So I kind of divided this video up into a few different sections. I have the series that I have started and I'm caught up on. I'm now just waiting for the next book in the series to come out. Then I have the series that I am definitely going to finish and or get caught up on. And then I have the series that I could be persuaded to continue or not continue depending on what you all think. And then I have the series that I will be DNFing and I will not be finishing. So let's just get into it. I have a lot of series to talk about. I'm probably not going to spend too much time talking about like the descriptions about what these books are about or these series are about, but let's just get into it because we have a lot to go over. So the first category is the series that I have got caught up on. They're ongoing series. I'm just waiting for the next book in the series to be released. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because there's not really much I can do with this. I have to wait for the next book to come out. Also, most of these series I am planning on continuing on with. There are a couple that I'm not quite sure if I'm going to continue on with, so we'll talk about those ones first. So the first series, one of the ones I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on with, is the Belle series by Danielle Clayton. So I read The Bells and The Everlasting Rose when they came out, and I knew in that second book that Danielle Clayton kind of left it open-ended for her to be able to return back to those characters in that world, but I found the sequel to be a little disappointing, so I don't actually know if I'm going to continue on with this series. I feel like I remember pretty much nothing about this world and these characters, so I don't know if I'm going to read the third book that comes out later this year, but I might wait and see what some of the reviews are saying. But that is a series that I'm caught up with. Another series that I am up to date with and don't know if I'm going to continue on with is the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I know. This series I have such conflicting emotions. Part of me loves it, part of me also hates it. I read A Court of Silver Flames, which was the most recent release, and I really loved it for Cassian and Cassian only. The romance was what really made me enjoy that book. Everything to do with the world, the plot that Sarah J Maas was trying to create for the second half of this series, and all of like the politics and all of the other characters, to be honest, I did not care. I even like actively hated. Ooh, do I admit this on the internet? I don't know. I really hated Rhysand in A Court of Silver Flames. So I don't know if I want to continue on with this series, to be honest. A part of me is curious to see what's gonna happen, but I got Cassian's book and that's all that really matters. So we'll see when these new books start coming out if I get swept up into the hype and end up reading it anyway, but at this point, like, I really don't have an interest in continuing on with this series. I got the Cassian book. That's all I ever wanted. And now the rest of the books and series that I am up to date with and caught up on, I am planning on continuing on with. So I'm just gonna go through these ones kind of quickly. We have the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I think there's going to be one more volume in this series, volume 5, and I will definitely be reading that. I love this series so much. Then we have a couple of Shadowhunter series. So when I'm filming this, The Last Hours has yet to complete. Chain of Thorns is not out yet, but obviously I will be reading that and I will be sobbing. And then also the Eldest Curses series, which is the Magnus and Alex series that Cassandra Clare is co-writing with Wesley Chu. I don't love this series compared to the other Shadowhunter books, but like it's still a Shadowhunters book, so therefore I'm going to read it, and I will be reading the final book in this trilogy when it releases. Then we have The Descent of the Drowned. I believe that is what the series is called. That's also what the first book in the series is called. We are finally getting the sequel this year, and I'm so excited. The Descent of the Drowned was an arc. It was the first arc I think I had ever received and read, and it was really exciting because I also really enjoyed it. Definitely need to do a reread of it before reading the sequel, but I'm really excited that we're finally getting the second book in this series. I think it's only going to be a duology, but I don't actually know for sure. Then we have the Roots of Chaos series, which is the like Priory of the Orange Tree series. Originally that was a standalone. We are now getting a prequel, A Day of Fallen Night, and I will be reading that, and I'm very excited for it. The next series I didn't even realize was a series until I was looking on Goodreads for this video. The author of The Night Swim, Megan Golden, is continuing in that world and with those characters. So The Night Swim is a mystery thriller following this character named Rachel, who has this true crime podcast, and she goes to this town to like report on this trial that's going on in this town, and then I think she ends up figuring out what really happened. I think. It's been a minute since I read The Night Swim, but I remember really enjoying it, and it's getting like a companion. We're still going to be following Rachel, who has this podcast, and I think she's going to be investigating something else. So because I like The Night Swim, and it's so rare for me to like a mystery thriller. I'm definitely going to be checking out this kind of companion sequel to The Night Swim. Then we have the Cemetery Boys series, which is so exciting that this is a series. Cemetery Boys, when I read it, was originally a standalone. It's been a standalone since it came out, but Aidan Thomas has announced that he's going to continue writing about these characters. He's writing a sequel, and I'm so excited. I loved Cemetery Boys so much, and I remember getting to the end of that book, and I wanted so much more from the characters. Not so much that it was like unsatisfying, it was a satisfying ending, but just like where that book ended, I was like, I wish we were getting more of this. And we are. So very excited about that sequel that is eventually coming out. I think Goodreads said it was coming out next year. So I definitely will be reading that. Then we have the Ember in the Ashes prequel graphic novels. So it's Saba Tahir, therefore I'm going to read it. And I love the Ember in the Ashes series so much. So these graphic novels are prequels to the events that happen in the main series. The first one focuses more on Elias. The second one is following Laya. And the third one, I don't know if we have any information on it. If I had to predict, it would be following Helene, but I really don't know. I don't know if there's any information out there about it, but I obviously will be reading it because, again, Ember in the Ashes, Saba Tahir, I have to read it. The next series that I'm caught up on is the Sisters of the Salt series. This was again another standalone turned series. So House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig is getting a sequel. I was pleasantly surprised by House of Salt and Sorrows. I do feel like that first book could still stand on its own and everything concluded within that book, but there are so many sisters within that story and I feel like there is a lot more she could do with it, so I'm still interested in picking up the sequel. And then the final series that I'm up to date with and will be continuing on with is the Ashling Sea series. I don't actually know if that's how you say that word. I looked it up and it seems like you say it Ashling, but if I'm wrong, please feel free to let me know. This is a fantasy romance series that I read on Kindle Unlimited. I think it was the first thing that I really picked up on Kindle Unlimited, or one of the first things I read there, and it has to do with pirates, and it's just like a fun time. Is it the best series I've ever read? No. But I did have a good time, and I do think it's fun, and I think there's only one more book coming out within this series, and it's coming out on my birthday, August 15th. So definitely will be reading that final book to complete that trilogy. But those are all the series that I am up to date with, that I'm caught up on, and now we can get into the series that I plan to either finish if the whole series is published and out, or I'm going to finish and get caught up on and be up to date with the newer releases. So the first series that I know I want to get caught up on and finish is the Legendborn series by Tracy Deonn. I believe that this series is going to be a trilogy, but I have only read the first book in this series. I still need to read Bloodmarked, which is the sequel that just recently came out, and I'm very excited to continue on with that series. I've heard some mixed things on Bloodmarked, but I do see from people that I trust that they have enjoyed it, so fingers crossed that I enjoy the continuation of this series. Another series I plan to finish is the Alex Stern series. So again, this is a series I think is ongoing, but I have yet to read the sequel, which is Hellbent, that recently just came out as well. I think I am at this point gonna have to do a reread of Ninth House before getting into Hellbent, but I definitely want to read the sequel. I've seen a lot of really great things about it so far, so I will be continuing on with this as well. I think there's going to be more books in this series. I have seen kind of conflicting information on how many books there's going to be in this series. I think I saw Lee Bardugo said this was going to be a trilogy, but either way, I'm definitely going to read the sequel. The next series is a graphic novel series. It's Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I'm almost up to date with this one. I just have to read volume 10. I absolutely love it. I love the characters. I love the world. It's so weird, but it's so cool, and I'm just so excited to see where this series goes. I'm actually surprised it's taken me this long to read volume 10 because of where volume 9 leaves off, but eventually I will get there and hopefully I will keep up with the new volumes coming out. Okay, the next series I also just kind of threw in, even though I've technically finished the series, I kind of count this series completed. It's the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco. The reason I'm putting this in here is because I have read the main 4 books in the series, but I have not read the novella that takes place between the 3rd and the 4th book. The novella is from Thomas Cresswell's point of view, who's the love interest and the other main character besides Audrey Rose in that series, and I love him, so I definitely want to read this at some point. I just haven't yet. So I'm kind of throwing this in here, even though technically I have finished the main series. I still have this novella to read. I think it's probably going to be a pretty quick read, so hopefully eventually I can get to it, but yeah, that's the only thing from the series I have yet to read. I also did start the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I read the first one. I didn't really love it, but I do own the second book in the series, so with this one it's more so I'm not determined to finish the whole series. I'm determined to read the books that I own from the series and see if I want to continue on. My plan is I'm going to read The Assassin's Blade. I think that's what the short story collection is called. I'm gonna read that, reread Throne of Glass, read Crown of Midnight, and then decide from there if I want to continue on with the series. But at this point, I have started it. We'll see if I finish it, but I'm going to at least finish the ones that I own. So that's why I put it in this category. The next series I want to finish is the Crier's War series. So this is only a duology. It should be easier. Sometimes I really struggle to finish duologies, and I don't know why, because there's only 2 books. But I read Crier's War a few years ago, and I absolutely loved it. So I definitely want to do a reread of it before getting into the sequel, just because it's been so long since I've read Crier's War. But because I loved it so much, I don't mind having to revisit the story and reread it again. But I'm hoping that I can actually finish this series this year, because I just really want to knock off some of these series and finish them, and I feel like duologies would be a good place to start. The next series I want to finish is the Diviner series by Libba Bray. I know not everyone has the best experience with the final book in this series, but I loved the first 2 so much, so I definitely want to continue on and see how this series and how this story wraps up. I really thought at the end of last year that I was going to finish this series, and then I didn't. I reread The Diviners, I read Layer of Dreams, and then I didn't read the 3rd and 4th books. So we will get there eventually. I will finish the series, even though, again, don't hear the best things about the 4th book, but I've enjoyed the series so far, so I need to just know how it ends. I need to see for myself if it's something I enjoy, or if I agree with a lot of other people that it's not great. I don't know, but I need to see for myself. I need to finish the series. The next series is the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. So this is like a companion romance series. We are following each of the Brown sisters in their own different romances. So the first one is following Chloe Brown, the second one is following Dani Brown, and both of those I have read, so I just need to read Eve Brown's story. And I'm really excited. It's on my 5-star predictions for this year, and I just feel like for some reason Eve Brown is going to be my favorite one. I don't know why, I just have this feeling that it's going to be my favorite and that I'm going to love it. So very excited to finish that series and also read a romance book that I'm highly anticipating and feel like I'm going to love. The next series is another duology for right now, at least. It is the Vicious duology by V.E. Schwab. So I've read Vicious, I need to read Vengeful. I think there may be a 3rd book that may eventually come out. I don't know if there's really any news on that, if that really is going to happen, but at this point, there are only 2 books out and I just need to read Vengeful, so hopefully I can also do that this year. I feel like this year, I just need to finish a lot of the duologies I've started. Like I said, it'll be an easy way to feel accomplished in finishing these series, so hopefully I can do that this year. The next series that I want to finish is yet another duology. It's the These Violent Delights duology. I just have Our Violent Ends to read, and then that will be done. But I know Chloe Gong has written some other books like set in this world, some novellas set in this world with some of the other characters, so I would like to read those, but I need to finish Our Violent Ends first. The next series I think is the first and only manga series that I've actually ever read, and that is Death Note. I say it's the only one I've read. I've only read 1 volume of it. I'm actually, I think, going to collect the Black editions. I have the first volume of the Black editions, which I think is volumes 1 and 2 in one kind of thing. Feel free to correct me down below if you know, but I think there are 6 volumes in total of the Black editions, so I think I'm just going to slowly start collecting them and then marathon the series. The Poppy War is another series I want to finish. I have read the first one and I own the second and third one. I'm just very intimidated by this series, even though I've already read the first one. It's just a bit daunting just because of the content, and I feel like the Poppy War had moments that were really intense, and I just know it's just going to continue on that way the rest of the series. But I did really enjoy the Poppy War. I found it really fascinating, very upsetting and disturbing at times, but very interesting, really interesting characters. So definitely want to continue on, especially as I own the whole series, just very intimidated to do so. Okay, the next couple of series I'm going to mention are both historical romance series. So the first one is the Feminine Pursuits series by Olivia Waite. I read the first one and really enjoyed it. Read the second one, didn't really enjoy it as much, thought it was just very fine, but at this point I think there's only one more book in this series, so I will read the third and final one just to see how it all wraps up, and hopefully the third one is more in line with the first one and I enjoy it like I did the first one in the series. The other historical romance series I want to finish is the Girl Meets Duke series by Tessa Dare. I read The Duchess Deal, which is the first book in this series, last year and loved it so much, so I definitely want to read the next books in the series. I think this is an ongoing series. There's going to be a 4th book, but the date of that keeps getting pushed back, which is why I'm like, do I want to get caught up in the series? Because then I'm going to have to wait for the 4th one. But I do have the second and third ones to read in the meantime, so hopefully I can do that. I really love The Duchess Deal, so I hope the rest of the series is as successful as the first one. Okay, next, The Graceling Realm is another series that I want to finish. So this now has 5 books in total in the series. I've read the first 2, Graceling and Fire. This was originally a trilogy, but more recently Kristen Kishore has added to this series, so there's now 5. I have have the third, fourth, and fifth ones to read. I don't know how many books there are going to be in this series, but I still have 3 to read. I actually own the 3 that I have yet to read, so at any point when I feel inspired to pick them up, they will be available to me. I also would like to finish the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. So this is the Cruel Prince series. I read The Cruel Prince, was pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't love it. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but like that's still a good rating and I still liked it. So I definitely want to continue on with that series. I have heard that people like the second book is their favorite or the third book is their favorite. So either way, I think I have exciting books ahead. I'm excited to continue on. I also think it won't take me that long to read these books. The books themselves are not super long. I think they're all within the 300-page mark. So definitely think that this could be a quick read and quick series for me to finish if I actually pick them up, which is a concept. The next series that I want to finish is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. I have read the self-published version of the first book, so I need to read the traditionally published version because I know there were changes made that you have to read in order to read the second one. So at some point, I'm sure I will revisit the Atlas Six, the traditionally published one, but I would like to continue on with this series. I found the characters really interesting and just like the concept and magic system really interesting. I didn't love it again. I think I gave it like 3 or 3.5 stars, but still interesting enough for me to want to continue. The next series that I want to complete is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I think the third book just came out recently, and I think that that wraps up the main story. I believe she's writing another book that is kind of like a companion to the series. I don't know if it's like a direct sequel. I don't know. At this point, like I kind of want to read the third book just to get the conclusion to the story, and then I'll probably be done with it because I don't love the series. I don't hate it. It has some fun characters, fun dynamics, and some fun like moments within the plot, and it's interesting, but it's not anything that I'm obsessed with. So I'll probably read the third book and then tap out, but I still want to see how everything ends. Then we have Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. I don't remember if this is going to be a trilogy. I think it might be. I have yet to read the second book in the series, but I really liked the first one, so another one that I will be continuing on with no matter how many books there are in the series because I enjoyed the first one so much. Then we have The XX by Erin Sterling, another series I find very average, but they're fun audiobooks. I listened to both of the books that have come out, The XX and The Kiss Curse, and they were just some fun, spooky rom-coms. I think I gave both of them like 3.5 stars. They are very fine, but still fun to listen to, so I think there is a third book coming out this year, and I will hopefully be able to get access to the audiobook for that and finish that series as well. And then the final series that I plan to finish is the one that I actually just started like the other day. So you're probably like, Lisa, why are you starting more series when this list is already so long? I don't know. It's fine though. I started Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which is the first book in the Red Rising series. I was checking on Goodreads yesterday. I think there's going to be 7 books in total, and the 7th book is coming out this year. So if I like the series, at least I'm going to have access to all of the books immediately and can maybe marathon them or just maybe like get through the whole series this year. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I did just start Red Rising, so it's yet another series to add to this list. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. I'm like maybe 20% of the way through the first book and I've already cried. I'm already like invested. So I have a feeling I'm going to want to continue on with this series. Okay, so those are all of the series that I plan to either finish or get caught up on if they're still ongoing series. Now we're going to talk about the ones that I'm not really sure. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe finishing some, maybe not finishing them. I really don't know what I want to do, and I would love for your opinion on what I should do if you liked them, if you think I'd like them. But the first series I want to talk about is the Wicked Fox series by Kat Cho. So the first book is Wicked Fox, and there is a sequel. It's, I think, more so of like a companion to Wicked Fox called Vicious Spirits, and I read Wicked Fox back in 2020. There's a common theme of me starting so many books and series in 2020. It was a rough year, and I guess I handled it by starting every series I have ever wanted to read. But anyway, read Wicked Fox, and I liked it in the moment. I thought it was fun, and I liked that I was reading it so close to the release of the sequel so that I could go out and get the sequel and read it right away. I bought the sequel right away, but didn't read it, clearly. It's now been 2.5 years since the sequel has come out, and I have yet to read it. And I think the only reason I feel like I maybe should complete it is because I bought the second one. I own it. It's been on my shelf waiting to be read for 2.5 years. If I didn't own it, I don't think I'd be drawn to picking this up and finishing this series. So I'm not really sure what to do here. I feel like I should at least give it a try because I bought it, but I don't know. I just haven't heard the best things about the sequel as well, so I'm not really sure what to do here. The next series is the Wayward Children series. So I recently watched Kayla from Books and Lala's vlog where she reread this whole series, which made me feel like I'm leaning more towards actually reading the series and finishing it. I read the first one, Every Heart a Doorway, back in 2020, and I liked it. I think it's such an interesting concept for a series, but I have yet to continue on, and I feel like, you know, the books are so short. I have access to the audiobooks. If you have read these books by audio, I'd love to know your thoughts and if you enjoy them that way, but it would be a quick series and quick reads to get through, so I may be leaning more towards actually finishing this series. If Kayla didn't post that video where she read the series, I don't think I would be so drawn to continuing this series and leaning more towards finishing it, but I definitely am at this point, so this is one that I definitely could see myself potentially finishing. Next we have the Green Glass House series by Kate Milford. This is a middle grade, like cozy type of series. I read the first one back in 2020 and I have yet to continue on. It was like a fun, cozy middle grade. There was a bit of a mystery. The characters were really great, but I just haven't really felt drawn to finishing this series or reading any of the other books. This is a series where you read one and it kind of wraps up the story. You don't really need to read the other ones. It kind of could be seen as a standalone. So I don't know. I'm not really sure if I get in that middle grade kind of cozy feeling and want to pick this series up. Maybe I will, but I'm kind of leaning towards maybe not finishing this one. It was a fun book in the moment, but I don't know if I really need to read the whole series. Okay, next, The Last Magician is another series that I've started. I only read the first one. This is a series by Lisa Maxwell. I think there's 4 books in total, and honestly, I don't feel super excited by this series. I liked the first one, but since reading it almost 2 years ago now, I have not felt drawn to continuing on and picking up the rest of the books in the series. If you've read the other books in the series, I'd love to know what you thought, because I feel like I just don't hear that much about the series as well, which I know I shouldn't base like whether I want to read a book or a series based off what other people are saying, but I think it would help knowing how other people feel about the rest of the books in the series, especially after feeling like it was fine with the first one. So I don't know. Let me know what you think of this series and if it's worth continuing on. The next one is kind of funny. It's The Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Technically there are other books that she has written that this is technically considered a series. There's Jo's Boys, Good Wives, and Little Men. I think I said those all out of order, so my apologies. And I liked Little Women, the book. I have yet to see any of the adaptations of it, but the book itself I enjoyed. I'm not obsessed with it like a lot of other people are, but I enjoyed it. I don't know if I really care enough to continue on and read some of the other books that Louisa May Alcott has written about these characters, but I'd be interested to know if you are a Little Women fan, would it be worth it to read those other books? Because I really don't know. I feel like I mostly hear people talking about Little Women versus the other books, so I would be interested to know what people think if they've read them. Then we have the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Carrie Maniscalco. I read the first one, thought it was very okay, found it very average. I know some people love this series, some people hate it. I really don't know where I would fall because the first one I found very fine. But a part of me is very curious to find out why people are so obsessed with this series, and I follow the author on Instagram and sometimes she posts things that like has me intrigued to check this out, but I don't know if I would like the rest of the series. I also feel like people who love this series, some of them were disappointed by the final book in the series, and they're fans, so I don't really know what I would end up thinking of it, but it's definitely one that I've started and I'm contemplating continuing on with. Okay, the next series is the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. So technically I have finished the original trilogy. That story has been wrapped up, but Maureen Johnson is writing some like companion books to the series, still following Stevie Bell, but they're different like mysteries and different things going on. And I enjoyed the Truly Devious series. I read it back in October. I read the whole series in 24 hours and it was fun reading it in the moment, but it's a series that once I finished it, I have not really thought about it since. It's definitely like not a new all-time favorite for me. It's fun in the moment, but I don't know if it's worth it to continue on and read some of the like companion books just because I don't really know if I care about the characters and the story that much to do so. I think I'm okay with just leaving it at the original trilogy and not really continuing on. So I think this is leaning more towards a DNF, but also like I did technically finish the original trilogy. I think just like the standalone companion books, I'm not going to read. The next series is the Love Light series. So this is by B.K. Borison. This is another like romance companion series. And I read the first one, Love Light Farms, recently, and I liked parts of it. I thought some parts of the romance were fun, but I really did not like the third act conflict, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the main character. But the second, third, and fourth books are following the side characters from the first book, and I liked all of those characters way more than the main character from Love Light Farms, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? Basically, the friends of the main character are going to be the main characters in the next few books in the series, and that makes me want to read them because I liked those characters in Love Light Farms, but I don't know if I'll like them as a main character, considering I didn't like the way she wrote her main character in Love Light Farms, and knowing how I did not like the way the first book wrapped up, I don't know if I trust this author to write a romance that I'm going to be satisfied with in the end, so I don't know if I'm going to continue on. I don't know if I would be just like upset by maybe characters that I originally liked, being disappointed by them and their stories when I read their particular books. It's one that I'm not really sure what to do. I don't know if I want to ruin the characters that I enjoyed from the first one, but also I would like to get more from them, so I'm not really sure what to do with that one. The next one is like kind of a reach, but because I mentioned a novella with the Stalking Jack the Ripper series earlier, I thought I would just throw this in. The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane got a novella that's like a holiday novella. I think it's like 30 pages. It's not a very long novella. I just didn't like, I liked the Charm Offensive, do not get me wrong, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't love it enough to be like, you know what I want? More from these characters. So I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the novella, but because it's so short, I may end up picking it up. I could see myself maybe picking it up later this year, who knows? If you've read it, let me know your thoughts. And then the final series that I'm kind of on the fence about is the Sorceline graphic novel series by Sylvia Douillet. I read the first one, it had some cute and cozy moments, some of the characters were really great, but it just wasn't a plot that was like super interesting, and honestly I found myself getting kind of confused at certain points in this graphic novel, which doesn't typically happen with me in graphic novels. I feel like because it's so visual, it's not common that I get confused, but for some reason the way it was written and the way the art was, I found it confusing at times. I like had to go back and like reread certain parts, but it did have cute moments, so I don't know. I could see myself maybe continuing on and trying the next volume and see if I just enjoy the story a little bit more in the second volume, but we'll see. And now we can get into the series that I have decided to DNF. I've actually moved some series from the maybe section to the DNF section while filming this video, just realizing, like seeing it on the list, I realized I don't want to continue on with them. So the first one that I think I'm going to DNF is the Wild series by K.A. Tucker. This is another romance companion series. I read the first one, The Simple Wild, and to be honest, if it wasn't for the storyline with the main character and her dad and them reconnecting and all of that, I would have hated this book. I did not like the romance. The love interest I thought was not great, didn't love him, and I just didn't like the way the author wrote the main character kind of changing by the end of the book for this guy. I don't know, just wasn't my favorite. If it was just the romance by itself, I would not like this book, and just because this book made me emotional with the main character and her dad, I kind of liked it, but I don't think I care about the characters and the romance enough to continue on with the series. So I think I'm not going to continue on with this one. I think this is going to be a DNF. Next, we have the Radiant Emperor series. So the first book in the series is She Who Became the Sun. I don't think the sequel has come out yet. It may be coming out this year. I liked a part of this book. I feel like the ending of this book was really strong, and like the second half of it was a little bit more interesting. The first half though was really slow, very confusing, and I wasn't really into it that much, so it was a book that I gave like 3 stars. I thought by the end it had some good moments, but overall it was just fine. I also don't think I'm going to continue on with this series, more for personal reasons. I read this book at a time when I was dealing with a loss in my family, so looking at this book cover sometimes just like reminds me of that time, thinking about the characters and the plot and everything. I just don't think I want to be back in that time period of my life, even though it was a good book to read at the time, because this is a book that requires your full attention. You need to be focused or you will get confused. At least that's how I found it. So it was a good distraction at the time if I needed that distraction, because I had to put all of my focus into this book, but I don't think it's necessarily something I want to revisit because it just kind of is associated with that time for me. So I think I'm going to DNF this one as well. Next, another series, well, standalone that turned into a series, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, got a prequel. Probably not gonna read it. They Both Die at the End was a book that in the moment made me emotional just because I'm a very sensitive person. Even if I'm not enjoying the book or the movie or the show or whatever it is, even if I'm not enjoying it but something sad happens, I will still get emotional. So I did get a little emotional reading the ending of They Both Die at the End, but it's a book that I finished, I closed it, I put it on my shelf, and I never really thought about it ever again. So it's clearly not one that stuck with me. It did not have the impact that I think it was supposed to. I don't think I'm gonna read the prequel. The prequel is like the first people who got that call from Deathcast, which is like in this particular world, if you get the call from Deathcast, you in 24 hours at some point will die. So I think it's like an interesting concept to see how that all started and see the first people who got that call, but I just don't think it's going to be something that I actually end up enjoying. The next series I'm not going to finish is the Carry On series by Rainbow Rowell. So Carry On, originally a standalone, and then was announced it was going to become a series, which at first I was very excited for, and I was very young and naive when I was in that feeling of excitement, because I personally feel like Wayward Son, the sequel, kind of ruined the whole series for me. I mean, I still think Carry On is good and can just stay on its own and be a standalone, but Wayward Son was not good. So I really have no faith that the third one is going to be good. And I also am not like rushing to run out and support Rainbow Rowell as well. So I am kind of good with just not continuing on and ruining the series even more for me. I still own Carry On, and I'm okay with still thinking that it's a standalone. There are no sequels. What sequels? Then we have the Montague Siblings series, which is by Mackenzie Lee, another author I'm not, wanting to really support either. So when the third book was announced, at first I was excited, but then I was not so much after Mackenzie Lee did some things. So I didn't end up reading the third one. At this point, my interest has completely withered away. I enjoyed the first one. I did enjoy it. The second one I thought was fine. So to be honest, I wasn't as excited about the third one because I didn't love the second one as much. So I'm good with just leaving it at that, leaving that series in the past. It's also been a long time since I read that series originally, so I feel like I don't really remember a whole lot. So yeah, another one that I'm not going to continue on with. The next series I'm not going to finish is the Serpent and Dove series by Shelby Mahurin. This is a trilogy, and I feel like people who even liked the first one didn't love the way this series ended. I don't feel like I heard that much about the sequel and the third book in the series. I did like the way the magic system worked in Serpent and Dove. I liked that magic came with a cost. You didn't just have like an endless supply of magic, but that was kind of it. I didn't really like the romance. I did not like Reed. Was that his name? The love interest? I did not like him. I don't understand how he was supposed to be viewed as like swoony and romantic, because he was kind of awful. And also this book, I don't know if it started out as this at all, but it kind of just read like Nina and Matthias fanfiction from Six of Crows, and I'm not the biggest fan of Matthias either, so I didn't really want to read a whole book that was basically about him, but like somehow even worse. So yeah, definitely not going to continue on with this series. I was sucked in by the beautiful cover and a story about witches, but just not for me. The next series I'm going to mention is The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. I read this first book in the series kind of a few months after starting my YouTube channel. It was still pretty early on in those days, and I was not very good at discussing books that I didn't like. I didn't want people to get upset with me, so I was often a little bit more generous than maybe I should have been, but I really just did not like this book. I didn't really connect with the story or the characters. I just didn't really care about what was going on. And at this point, it's been well over 3 years since I read this book, and I really don't remember a lot of it. I don't think I really remembered a whole lot of it while I was reading it. Just not very memorable, so definitely not going to read the sequel. I think there's only a second book in the series, but definitely not going to read that one. Next we have The Princess Diaries, which is kind of funny. I read this first book in this series for the Reading Rush Readathon back in 2020, and it was fun to listen to. I listened to the audiobook because it was narrated by Anne Hathaway, so that was really fun, but it's not a series that I'm planning on continuing on. It was just to fulfill a prompt for Readathon. I think I'll stick to watching the movies. The next series is the A Song Below Water series. I know that the first book is called A Song Below Water. There is a sequel called A Chorus Rises or something like that. It has a beautiful cover. However, I just thought that the first one was fine. I think it was interesting the way the author paralleled certain topics and current events and issues discussing like racism, and having that parallel with these characters being mermaids and the issues that they face with that. I found that very interesting. However, it just wasn't anything that I really loved. I thought it was fine, so I don't think I'm going to end up picking up the companion for this. Next we have, let me consult my notes because it's quite a title, The Extraordinary Adventures of the Athena Club. So this, I read the first book, which is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. This is by Theodora Goss. I I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I didn't feel super connected with the characters or the plot, and I think this is one where the premise sounded so much more interesting than how it actually played out for me. I just wasn't as into it as I was hoping to be. Next, we have some classic YA series, so Red Queen and The Selection. I think I just missed the train with both of these series. If I had read them when they were coming out, when they were popular, when I was in the YA age demographic, I think I would have liked them a lot more. Red Queen for me just had a lot of like classic YA tropes, and it wasn't necessarily bad. It didn't take those tropes and make them bad. It just wasn't anything super unique to me. The Selection I really just didn't enjoy, so I don't plan on continuing with that series either. Next we have The Witches of Thistle Grove. So this is another romance companion series. The first one is Payback's a Witch, and I just, again, another one that I really didn't feel much of anything towards it. I honestly like just didn't really care again, so I don't think I'm gonna read the other books in the series. There's now 3. I knew that there was gonna be a sequel, but I just checked before filming this video, and there's actually a 3rd one as well. So I know I'm not going to be drawn to picking up the rest of the books in the series, as I didn't love the first one. Some more historical romance series. These ones unfortunately not gonna be continuing on with. Bridgerton, that series by Julia Quinn. Read The Duke and I, didn't like it, really just hated it actually. And I know that the show, especially like season 2, Kate and Anthony, I know their book, which is the second book in the series, is completely different. And I've also heard that Julia Quinn kind of tends to just like copy paste a lot of the plots and a lot of the things that happen in all of her books. So it kind of just feels like you're reading the same book over and over again. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to read The Duke and I over and over again. It was already too much the first time I read it. So I don't think I'm going to continue on with the book series. However, I will continue to watch the show. The other historical romance series I'm not going to finish is the Seasons of Love series. So these are all like historical romance novellas, I think set during different holidays. I think there's one at Christmas, which is the one I read, A Christmas Surprise. There's one I think at like Valentine's Day. It looked like there was like an autumnal, October one. I just didn't really love the one that I read. I feel like the more I think about it, the more I realize I just didn't like it. I kept making excuses thinking, you know, it was a novella. It was short, didn't have enough time to get connected with anything, but I also just didn't really love the characters or the plot, so I just didn't really love it. The next series I'm not going to finish is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This one makes me so sad because I was so excited to read the first book in this series. This was another one I just really didn't connect with the characters. I found the pacing to be a bit weird, and I also just wasn't super into the plot. I liked a part of the plot, like towards the end, but most of it just felt a bit like the book was just kind of wandering around. They were just going on a lot of side quests and nothing really felt important to the main plot of the story, which I understand some side quests, but it kind of felt like that was the whole book until like the very end. So I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite, which is so unfortunate because I really wanted to love this book and this series, but unfortunately I did not, so I don't think I'm going to continue on. And then finally, the series I'm also not going to be completing is the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I read From Blood and Ash last year and absolutely hated it. So I'm not going to put myself through reading even more books in that series and in that world. I know that she has written some other books. I don't know if they're all connected, if it's all one series, or if they're all just taking place in the same world. I just know I've seen a lot of covers that kind of have a similar style to the From Blood and Ash cover. So it just seems like there's a lot to read, and I didn't like the first one. So I don't think I'm going to venture more into this world and with these characters because I really hated the first one. But that is it. Those are all of the series that I have started in the more recent years. I think a majority of these series I have started since starting my booktube channel, so that's a lot of series in almost 4 years, but it's fine. We'll get there. I will finish some. Having this video to reference and talking about the series that I'm excited to finish makes me excited to actually pick them up and make sure I'm prioritizing them. But I also think this video was helpful to kind of talk through the series that I'm kind of on the fence about, not only because now you all can like comment and tell me which ones I should continue on with, give me your opinions, which ones I may be okay to just not finish, but even just me talking about them and just kind of chatting about how I felt about them, I kind of realized which ones I'm definitely leaning more towards finishing and which ones I'd probably be okay with DNFing. So I think this was helpful in not only figuring out how many series I do want to complete, but also inspiring me to actually finish all of the series I've started. I would love to know down below in the comments if there's any of these series that you would like me to maybe vlog and document. I was thinking of maybe doing some more vlogs where I read like an entire series in one singular vlog, give my thoughts. I don't know, is that something you would like to see? Would you like to see it with any of these series? Definitely let me know in the comments, but I think that is going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.